Okay, today we're going to read Jack and the Beanstalk. A long, long time ago, when most of the world was young and folks did what they liked because all things were good, there lived a boy called Jack. His father was bedridden, and his mother, a good soul, was busy early morns and late eves planning and placing how to support her sick husband and her young son by selling the milk and butter which Milky White, the beautiful cow, gave them without stint. For it was summertime, but winter came on. The herbs of the fields took refuge from the frosts and the warm earth, and though his mother sent Jack to gather what fodder he could get in the hedgerows, he came back as often as not with a very empty sack, for Jack's eyes were so often full of wonder at all the things he saw that sometimes he forgot to work. So it came to pass that one morning Milky White gave no milk at all, not one drain. Then the good hard-working mother threw her apron over her head and sobbed, "What shall we do? What shall we do?" Now Jack loved his mother. Besides, he felt just a bit sneaky at being such a big boy and doing so little to help. So he said, cheer up, I'll go and get work somewhere." And he felt as he spoke, as if he would work his fingers to the bone, but the good woman shook her head mournfully. "You've tried that before, Jack," she said, "and nobody would keep you. You are quite a good lad, but your wits go a wool gathering. No, we must sell Milky White and live on the money. It is no use crying over milk that is not here to spill." You see, she was a wise as well as a hard-working woman, and Jack's spirits rose. "Just so," he cried. "We will sell Milky White and be richer than ever. It is an ill wind that blows no one good. So, as it is market day, I'll take her there, and we shall see what we shall see." "But," began his mother. "But doesn't butter parsnips," laughed Jack. "Trust me to make a good bargain." So, as it was washing day, and her sick husband was more ailing than usual, his mother let Jack set off to sell the cow. "Not less than 10 pounds, she bawled after him as he turned the corner. 10 pounds indeed, Jack had made up his mind. 20 solid golden sovereigns. His mother was just settling what he should buy. He was just settling what he should buy his mother as a faring out of the money, when he saw a queer little old man on the road who called out, "Good morning, Jack." "Good morning," replied Jack with a polite bow, wondering how the queer little old man happened to know his name, though to be sure Jack's were as plentiful as blackberries. "And where may you be going?" asked the queer little old man. Jack wondered again. He was always wondering, what the queer little old man had to do with it. But being always polite, he replied, "I am going to market to sell Milky White, and I mean to make a good bargain." So you will," chuckled the queer little old man. "You look the sort of chap for it. I'll bet you know how many beans make 5. 2 in each hand and 1 in my mouth," answered Jack readily. He really was sharp as a needle. Just so," chuckled the queer little old man. And as he spoke, he drew out of his pocket 5 beans. "Well, here they are, so give us Milky White." Jack was so flabbergasted that he stood with his mouth open, as if he expected the 5th bean to fly into it. "What?" he asked at last. "My Milky White for 5 common beans? Not if I know it." "But they aren't common beans," put in the queer little old man, and there was a queer little smile on his queer little face. "If you plant those beans overnight, by morning they will have grown up right into the sky." Jack was too flabbergasted this time even to open his mouth. His eyes opened instead. "Did you say right into the very sky?" he asked at last, for you see, Jack had wondered more about the sky than about anything else. "Right up into the very sky," repeated the queer old man with a nod between each word. "It's a good bargain, Jack, and as fair play as a jewel if they don't. Why, meet me here tomorrow morning, and you shall have Milky White back again. Will that please you?" "Right as a trivet," cried Jack without stopping to think, and the next moment he found himself standing on an empty road. 2 in each hand and 1 in my mouth," repeated Jack. "That is what I said and what I'll do. Everything in order, and if what the queer little old man said isn't true, I shall get Milky White back tomorrow morning." So whistling and munching the bean, he trudged home carefully, wondering what the sky would be like if he ever got there. "What a long time you've been," exclaimed his mother, who was watching anxiously for him at the gate. "It is past sunsetting, but I see you have sold Milky White. Tell me, quick, how much you got for her." "You'll never guess," began Jack. Laws a mercy, you don't say so, interrupted the good woman, and I warden all day lest they should take you in. What can it be, 10 pounds, 15? Sure it can't be 20. Jack held out the beans triumphantly. There, he said, that's what I got for her, and a jolly good bargain, too. It was his mother's turn to be flabbergasted, but all she said was, What? Them beans? Yes, replied Jack, beginning to doubt his own wisdom, but they're magic beans. If you plant them overnight, by morning they grow right up into the sky. Oh, please don't hit so hard, for Jack's mother for once had lost her temper and was belaboring the boy for all she was worth. And when she had finished scolding and beating, she flung the miserable beans out the window and sent him supperless to bed. If this was the magical effect of the beans, thought Jack ruefully, if he didn't want any more magic, if you please. However, being healthy and, as a rule, happy, he soon fell asleep and slept like a top. When he woke, he thought at first it was moonlight, for everything in the room showed greenish. Then he stared at the little window. It was covered, as if with a curtain, by leaves. He was out of bed in a trice, and the next moment, without waiting to dress, was climbing up the biggest beanstalk you ever saw. For what the queer little old man had said was true. One of the beans, which his mother had chucked into the garden, had found soil, taken root, and grown in the night. Where? Up to the very sky. Jack meant to see at any rate. So he climbed and he climbed and he climbed. It was easy work, for the big beanstalk, with the leaves growing out of each side, was like a ladder. For all that, he was soon out of breath. Then he got a second wind and was just beginning to wonder if he had a third when he saw in front of him a wide, shining white road stretching away and away and away. So he took to walking, and he walked and walked and walked, till he came to a tall, shining white house with a wide, white doorstep. And on the doorstep stood a great big woman with a black porridge pot in her hand. Now Jack, having had no supper, was hungry as a hunter, and when he saw the porridge pot, he said quite politely, Good morning, ma'am. I wonder if you could give me some breakfast. Breakfast? Echoed the woman, who in truth was an ogre's wife. If it is breakfast you're wanting, it's breakfast you'll likely be, for I expect my man home every instant, and there is nothing he likes better for breakfast than a fat boy grilled on toast. Now Jack was not a bit of a coward, and when he wanted a thing, he generally got it, so he said cheerful-like, I'd be fatter if I'd had my breakfast. Whereat the ogre's wife laughed and bade Jack come in, for she was not really half as bad as she looked. But he had hardly finished the great bowl of porridge and milk she gave him when the whole house began to tremble and quake. It was the ogre coming home. Thump, thump, thump! Into the oven with you, sharp! Cried the ogre's wife, and the iron oven door was just closed when the ogre strode in. Jack could see him through the little peephole slide at the top where the steam came out. He was a big one for sure. He had 3 sheep strung to his belt, and these he threw down on the table. Here, wife, he cried, roast me these snippets for breakfast. They are all I've been able to get this morning, worse luck. I hope the oven's hot. And he went to touch the handle, while Jack burst out of all of his sweat, wondering what would happen next. Roast? Echoed the ogre's wife. Pooh, the little things would dry to cinders. Better boil them. So she set to work to boil them, but the ogre began sniffing about the room. They don't smell mutton meat, he growled. Then he frowned horribly and began the real ogre's rhyme. Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. Don't be silly, said his wife. It's the bones of the little boy you had for supper that I'm boiling down for soup. Come, eat your breakfast, there's a good ogre. So the ogre ate his 3 sheep, and when he had done, he went to a big oaken chest and took out 3 big bags of golden pieces. These he put on the table and began to count their contents while his wife cleared away the breakfast things. And by his head began to nod, and at last he began to snore, and he snored so loud the whole house shook. Then Jack nipped out of the oven, and seizing one of the bags of gold, crept away and ran along the straight, wide, shining white road as fast as his legs would carry him until he came to the beanstalk. He couldn't climb down it with the bag of gold, it was so heavy, so he just flung his burden down first, and helter-skelter climbed after it. And when he came to the bottom, there was his mother picking up gold pieces out of the garden as fast as she could, for, of course, the bag had burst. "Laws of mercy," she said. "Wherever have you been? See, it's been raining gold." "No, it hasn't," began Jack. "I climbed up." Then he turned to look for the beanstalk, but lo and behold, it wasn't there at all. So he knew then it was all real magic. After that, they lived happily on the golden pieces for a long time, and the bedridden father got all sorts of nice things to eat. But at last a day came when Jack's mother showed a doleful face as she put a big yellow sovereign into Jack's hand and bade him be careful marketing, because there was not one more in the coffer. After that, they must starve. That night, Jack went supperless to bed of his own accord. If he couldn't make money, he thought, at any rate, he could eat less money. It was a shame for a big boy to stuff himself and bring no grist to the mill. He slept like a top, as boys do when they don't overeat themselves. And when he woke, hey presto, the whole room showed greenish. And there was a curtain of leaves over the window. Another beanstalk had grown in the night, and Jack was up it like a lamplighter before you could say knife. This time he didn't take nearly so long climbing until he reached the straight, wide, white road, and in a trice he found himself before the tall, white house, where on the wide, white steps the ogre's wife was standing with a black porridge pot in her hand. And this time Jack was as bold as brass. "Good morning, ma'am," he said. "I have come to ask you for breakfast, for I had no supper, and I'm as hungry as a hunter." "Go away, bad boy," replied the ogre's wife. "Last time I gave a boy breakfast, my man missed a whole bag of gold. I believe you are the same boy." "Maybe I am, maybe I'm not," said Jack with a laugh. "I'll tell you true when I've had my breakfast. But not till then.